and I landed on 7,500. And I thought, well, you know what? If nothing else, I might get 1,000 out of this to do these 5 things that need to get done, and I'll send it off. But I'm not going to quote anything lower than that because I know it's going to be a big undertaking. And I sent it off, and then the next morning it's like 5 a.m. I've got a cup of coffee. I'm sitting at my computer, and then I get a little Moxie notification. Moxie is my CRM. Little notification pop in that says you got a signed agreement. And so I was like, oh, okay. And so I'm expecting, I'm gonna hop in there and I'll see that she took the $1,000 thing to fix the 5 items, and she selected the second one. And I opened my email and there's a note from her. Absolutely love the way this looks. This sounds amazing. Let's go all in. I want you to be around, I want to have you on hand for 18 months. Let's go.
Welcome to the Web Design Business Podcast with your host, Josh Hall, helping you build a web design business that gives you freedom and a lifestyle you love.
Hey friends, it's great to have you here for this episode. So if you have been a web designer for a while, I want to invite you to think back to your first year in business and to think about your highest project in that first year, the most you charged for a website in your first year. Aside from the rare exception, I'm guessing it's probably to the tune of low thousands or probably even hundreds. And I'm raising my hand here if you can't see me, because yes, I didn't even make more than $1,000 for a website project in my first year. But my guest in this podcast episode did. This is Ben Forrid, who is still, at the time of releasing this episode, in his first year of his web design business. He's also a full-time corporate worker who is building his web design business on the side. So this is a side hustle. And I'm so excited for you to be able to hear exactly what he did in starting his business on the side and getting it very quickly to a point where he was able to turn a $1,000 website project into a $7,500 website project. So to be able to help somebody sell a $7,500 project in year one is amazing. And Ben has really done a lot of cool things in order to get to this point so early in his business. Ben is a member of my Community Web Designer Pro, actually one of our top engaged members, and it shows because he has really worked hard to build this thing. He's dead serious about building his web design business to eventually be able to go full time. So what an honor to have a part so early in his journey, and I can't wait to see what he does next. In this conversation, I'm excited for you to learn about what he's done because he is an open book. We get into what he did to kind of speed learn on building websites, not having a background in web design. We get into how he refined his offers and price points that work for him in order to be able to charge $7,500, how he utilized his background in a very unique niche to have a pool of clients to work with, how he created this genius little 4-step process of selling a low ticket item first to build trust, which then led him to turn a $1,000 project into this $7,500 project. So all that and more is covered. Here has been, you can go check out his website at forridwebdesign.com. That will be linked in the show notes for this episode at joshhall.co/346. And if you are early in your journey, if you didn't know, I do have a free guide, a free training, which is actually a 10-step action plan that you can pick up today for you to help you start your business if you're early on. That is at joshhall.co/start. joshhall.co/start. We'll zip you over there, and I would love to give you this free training, which is a lot of what Ben did to do this in his first year in business on how he was able to go for a $7,500 project. Way to go, Ben. All right, here we go. I hope you enjoy this one, friends. I really, really enjoyed chatting with Ben, and I think you're going to learn a lot. So go to the show notes at this episode, joshhall.co/346, to connect with him and get all the links and resources we've mentioned. Ben, pumped to have you on, dude. Needless to say, so excited to chat, dude.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. It's weird because I was just thinking, a year ago, I was preparing to start a business in web design. I had been doing some work to learn coding and try to get stuff there. And I built a website for a previous business I had. And I was listening to podcasts, and they were like, how to make $1 million on Upwork, and like, how do you do, all of these things. Well, I listened to all the episodes of one of these podcasts, and I said, I got to find a new podcast. And yours came up, and started listening to yours. Fast forward a few months, I'm joining Pro, and now you and I are sitting here talking, and I'm like, a year ago, I just started listening to your podcast while like working on stuff in my garage. So now it's a thing. It's very meta.
Made it on the podcast in a year. Well, that's all credit to you, dude. I mean, honestly, Ben, like you jumped in Pro, you were immediately engaged and super active, but most importantly, like you have been an action taker. You have not wasted any time, which I know you're working with limited hours, with working full time. I'm sure we'll get into that, being a family man and a dad. Like you have limited time. And I feel like sometimes folks in that situation actually tend to make the fastest results because you don't have time to overthink things or let imposter syndrome sink in. You just learn, implement, and go. So credit to you, dude, for all you've done in less than a year in your business. I know we're going to talk about the trajectory you're on, but all on you, dude.
Well, I appreciate that. But I have to turn it around and throw it back all at you, because I honestly believe that joining the community, getting to know people who have gone through this before, and people who are doing it right now at the same time as me, is a totally, you can't put a price on it. You're essentially thrown into the mix with your courses, which are a blueprint for how to get things rolling. And then you've got this entire community of people that help you when you get stuck. They cheer you on when you win, and they help you through when you're struggling. And I've always been a person who believes there's virtue in the struggle, and that's an okay thing to sit with. But man, is it easier to do when you've got a group of people around you.
That's so well said, dude. I just told you, I think it was last week, that you've got like a hidden talent with copy, right? So like you're already,
except when it comes to writing on my website.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we're always better for our clients. Yeah. Well, so where were you last year, Ben? I know we're going to get to the trajectory you've made. I posted recently about your recent win, 7 months in Pro, and then you just landed a $7,500 project, but it has been a journey already in the first year to get there. So what I'd love to start off with here as we kind of dig into your journey is, where were you last year? What was the impetus to get into web design? Yeah,
there's a long answer before that, and I'll try to keep it as short as I can. But I'm a person who I'm your prototypical millennial. I grew up in a house. My parents were both there. They were both professionals. They both went to college. My family members all went to college. And so it wasn't even a thought. It was like, you get out of high school, you go to college, you go follow your dream to be what you want to be. And my problem was that I never had a dream of what I wanted to be. And so it was a lot of chasing. I started as an engineering major. I dropped that, went to photography school for a year, switched that, and graduated with biology. And all of that is to say that I have marched through a process over my 15-year career in biomedical research, doing everything you're supposed to do. And at the end of all of that thing, by objective measures, you should be in a place with your life that you want nothing more. This is the zenith. And what I found for myself is that that's true for some people, but this isn't the true fit for me. And I began to look at, well, what can I do that I'm interested in? And during the pandemic, I was working in clinical research. And so we were doing clinical trials for COVID, and it was just about as stressful as you can possibly get. And I needed something to keep my mind off of work so I wouldn't go crazy. And I found coding. I started taking class on Code Academy and Udemy, And it was actually more of an escape because I found that if I get sucked into coding, I could spend a number of hours in there and enjoy every minute of it. And so a year ago, I was trying to figure out what my next steps are. What's my big dream that I'm chasing? I'm pushing 40. If I'm going to do this, I have to do it now. And web design opened up this opportunity that I thought I would try to chase. And so I started listening to podcasts. I started doing all of those different other things. And, like you said, and like you say, you have this opportunity with web design to either build yourself a job or build yourself a business or build yourself an exit. You're trying to move through either of these phases. And I have thought of myself in each of them. At the beginning, I was like, I'm going to be a freelance web designer. And then now I'm at a point where it's like, I'd still love all of that stuff, but I find more of a rush and satisfaction in running a show. I want to be a business owner and moving towards those things. So, I think as I've come to get to know myself, my own dreams, where I want to go, I know three things about me that I can take. One is that I need human connection. I need to be working with people. I need to be able to be creative as I want to be, and I can do that. And I have to be solving problems. I've got to be nurturing some intrinsic curiosity. Like I have to be out there trying to figure out how the world works. I got to, web design checks all those boxes. Owning a web design business checks all of those options and all of those boxes for me. And this has been like an incredibly natural feeling fit. And that's been the push and the force behind it. I want to chase the life I want, which is to spend more time at home with my wife and our 4 kids and watch them grow up, be available for them, be around, be happy, not be crabby coming home from work every day. And know that the time that I am spending working is time that I'm spending on myself. I'm taking the products of that. I'm taking the profit. I'm keeping that. I'm working with the family. And none of this is to say that somebody who has a job is like a, sucker or something. It's just, this wasn't the right, that's just not for me. I've always wanted to work for myself.
It's a good point though. When you have a job, ultimately you are building somebody else's business.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the trade-off. And even I think that's where a lot of frustration comes from, where people went to college, got a degree, and then there wasn't a job waiting for them, and there wasn't a thing that was there. And so your options are work outside of everything you just worked really hard to get a degree in, or go to more school and take on more debt and do those things. And you just have no guarantee that any of that's going to pay off. And it's kind of funny. I'll actually just tell it. One of my college professors was a business class. First day of the class, he walked in and he was talking, introduced himself. He goes, "How many of you, show of hands, are here because you want to be an entrepreneur?" And, like half dozen people kind of raised their hands. "Yeah, I'm going to college to be an entrepreneur." And he said, "You still have time to get your money back. Get up and walk out because you've got everything you need to be an entrepreneur right now."
Wow.
I'm not going to teach you anything that you're not going to learn out there the hard way. And learning it from me isn't going to make any of that easier for you. So his advice was, if you're here to learn how to start a business, get your money back and go start a business. And I should have known that. But, that looking back, that was actually pretty wise.
It's a great point, though. And that was so funny, man. I was going to ask you, what were the key elements that drew you to web design? That's really common. I think a lot of people, as a web designer, web design business owner, are attracted to creativity, like something that's just going to literally get your artistic touch out into the world, people, and then problem solving, which doesn't always sound fun, but it is a good ongoing brain teaser when things don't stay the same.
Yeah.
And like, I think every web designer probably feel the same way, where it's like, none of us would do well in a job where every day is the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again. Like we would all go insane. And so all those things are some of the most beautiful aspects of web design. So it's cool to hear that those were some of the things that drew you to it originally.
Absolutely. And I say problem solving, but it shows up in all kinds of different contexts. And, all I'm really talking about is that thing inside of you when you see something that makes you go, how does that work? And, I can just tell you that my thing or something that I enjoy, every time I open Chrome's developer tools and I start to dive in there to see what's going on with this site, and try to find the right classes to throw into this script that I can use to make my site, behave a certain way. Every single time I'm looking at that screen of code, I'm like, all right, here we go. It's like, let's do this. Yeah. And, that piques my problem solving, gets my curiosity going. Yeah.
So I was just thinking, a lot of people, I think, do think about problem solving in the way of tech, but problem solving really extends to business solutions, marketing, copy, like the result that you're trying to get for clients. Like there's a lot of different forms of problem solving, which are unintentionally more exciting, or, equally as exciting for web designers as like yourself. You become kind of a business owner, because as you've very rightly realized more recently, it's like you're basically a consultant now, along with being a designer for your clients.
Yeah, it's a lot of sitting there and my first sales call, talking to a lead and telling them about the business and what we can do and things, was incredibly nerve-wracking for me because I'd never sold a website. But it's also sitting there and they start to ask questions and you're going like, man, these are some softballs. When are they going to ask the real, head scratchers, the brain busters, as Billy Madison would say? It's like, I'm the expert in the room right now. Holy cow. And so you just reframe the way that you're approaching that meeting, and you're not trying to sell anything. You're just going, no, I know the answer to that. And by the end of the call, they have a need. You've demonstrated that you know what you need to know to take care of that need. And it becomes easier for them to sign with you than to have another call with somebody else.
So I definitely want to get into how you started getting clients. I am curious though, when you began learning web design, I know you jumped in pro of January. I just looked recently, January 12th of this year, 2024.
All right.
So you had been kind of dabbling around with things, coding, learning some design stuff a few months before jumping into pro. But I'm curious about your time management. You are a father, you're a husband, you got 4 kiddos, you're working full time. How the heck did you manage to learn and start to implement with the limited time that you have? You have a flexible job that you work from home. Like, how did you practically get going with time constraints?
Yeah. Well, first and absolutely foremost is a supportive spouse. My wife knows that, I'm where I'm at with my career, and, I'm a better person to be around when I'm happy. So she's like, let's do what we need to do. She's also a business owner, so she gets it. But having her support is the biggest thing. But aside from that, I wake up 2 hours before everybody else, just naturally. And I go to bed later, and I do a lot of my work in the early mornings and in the evenings, right before bedtime. Put the little kids to bed. The youngest ones, we hang out, and then after people go to bed, sometimes I'll hang out and do some more work. And so weekends, nights, early mornings, you just kind of cram it in whenever you get a chance. I don't have any secrets. It's just, are you awake right now? Are you doing anything? Okay, well then let's work on websites.
Now, some would call that workaholic, or workaholism. Is that? No, it's a word here.
Workaholism.
We made up another one together. But the thing is, I mean, tell me honestly, Ben, like, I see this in you. I've seen this since day one in pro. Like, it's freaking exciting, isn't it? Isn't it just awesome to create something and then see the momentum build? And then I know you posted a challenge in pro, I think it was in March, that you wanted your first paying client just a couple months in. Guess what happened in March? Wasn't it the last
It was
day
the
of
last
March?
day.
That's
right
what
at
happens. That's what happens when you put it out into the universe and put it in pro. The last day of March, you got your first paying client.
All of this is just me living up to my Babe Ruth moment when I joined pro and wrote my intro. And at the end of the intro, I said, who are you? I'm Josh Hall's biggest success story. And this is also my first day here. But I'm just sticking to the script, man. I think that, I lost my train of thought.
Oh, that's so great, man. There really is a lot of power to that, though. And it's one reason I'm really excited. We recently opened the accountability section up in pro, because it's like when you voice something or when you write it down, whether it's a goal that you put on your wall or whether it's a goal like you did, like I want to get a client by the end of this month, that really dictates your actions. And it's one reason I've learned with pro, and this will filter out to web designers working with clients too, is it's like when you're working with somebody, if you can try to get a reachable goal and there's a little bit of accountability there, whether it's a follow-up or whether, again, it's something that you have on your desk or on a Post-it or whatever, there really is something to that, because I don't know, you tell me, doesn't it just make you a little more sharper, a little less lagging on like decision making? It's like, okay, here's my goal. I need a first paying client. Well, I have for you, I can build websites now from start to finish. Where do I get clients? So I would actually like to hear that. Like, number one, did that help you expedite the process? And number two, how did you get that first client?
Yeah. Oh, totally. So I think that anytime you set yourself a deadline publicly, you're going to hold yourself more accountable to that. And I called my shot and said, let's go. And I joined a referral group, met some people there in person, some people locally. And I think we'll probably get into this a little bit later, but I have, two different kind of sides to the business. And so this one person, the first client that I had came through in a contact form that they had come through, or that they saw, found my site, and it was like, okay, so you just organically found me on the internet. And she said, I just need somebody to be on standby to help me with updates each month and do these kinds of things. Is that something you can do? And before even knowing if the answer was yes, I said yes. And that was kind of how it went. So at the 11th hour, I got my very first paying client.
And that was online via the Google. So that wasn't actually directly through the networking group yet. Or was that by way of that somehow?
You know what? Actually, this is interesting. So maybe we can just go into it now. So I started Forward Web Design is the name of my business. And I love working with small businesses. I love working with people who would just absolutely relate to the whole long-winded spiel I gave at the beginning of this podcast. And just understanding, hey, we're like in this struggle, in this toil, trying to carve out our little bit of the pie together. I get you. I know what's going on. Let me build your website. And that's been a conversation that's really easy to have for me. The other thing is I've spent 15 years working in biomedical research. And so I have background in things like genetics and stuff like that. And I've been involved in advocacy for rare diseases. And so I myself have a rare disease. I have worked with people who research rare diseases. I've researched them myself. And it's a thing where there's a very, very close-knit community out there of people who, have children with a monogenic type of epilepsy or something where, and I know you relate to this personally. You're very public about your own daughter, Bria. And it's a very close network of people who, just like the small business thing I was talking about, get it. They get each other. There's a lot of peace that comes with being around people that you don't have to explain anything to. They just understand. And I think that spending time with those advocacy organizations and knowing how hard they have to work to get $1 of donated funding to support research, they need better websites. That was something that was there. They're DIYing them. Some are better than others. If they do pay somebody to do it, they'll hire the cheapest person. They'll build a site and then they'll be gone. And then they're left trying to maintain this thing. And so I just thought to myself, this is an area of need. This is a group of people that I'm a part of. I'm a part of this group. And how can I use that to help them? How can I use this business to help them? And so I have this separate brand called ZebraSight Studios that's for the rare disease advocacy community specifically. That's a niche. And I serve them on a subscription web design model based loosely off of Steve Schramm's the setup there. And Steve's also awesome. But it's essentially a way to approach them and say, "Hey, I know cash flows are tight. This is tough. You're running a nonprofit. You're running on donations. You're also usually a mom who's got a kid with special needs who's also trying to put food on the table and raise other children at the same time. There's just no time for you to sit down and build a freaking website. So how about this? Let's do like the amount of money I would need right now to get things going. Let's say $300 right now at this moment in time. And every month for the next 18 months, you, instead of paying me $7,500 now, how about $350 a month for the next 18 months? You're going to have me there the entire time. And so I'm not going anywhere. Each month you can call out, Ben, I need this, I need this. And even if you're not asking for anything, I'm still going to be there in the background, making sure your site's live, it's secure, it's got all of the things you need. Just because of my work, I know all of these like privacy requirements like GDPR and things. If you've got people in the EU hitting your site, they have special privacy rights. And so it's navigating those kinds of things. Again, talking to people who just get it. Sales, I think, is all about making it easier for a person to take advantage of an opportunity to make their life better than to walk away. So, yeah, Ben, you are totally part of this community and you understand everything about what I just talked about. And you could totally probably write all of the copy for this website without me giving you too much more information. But I'm going to go talk to this other guy. It's just not a conversation that happens all that often.
Yeah. I was going to say, you probably have a much higher conversion rate just by way of being in that world, talking, you know the pain points, the challenges, you're in that world yourself. Mm-hmm. So as you know, like my advice with niching is like, if you are in a world of some kind, or even if it's your background and you speak the language, the people, then by all means, if it's profitable or if it is a side wing of your business like you're doing, which I think is really smart, that's when to do it. And I love that you recognize that most people do not have funding or barely any money, and it's not a business. So subscription model is a great way to go if it's just a more templatized, productized service over a set of months. Exactly.
And to get to your original question, my first client actually came from that side brand. Okay. And it was, and that was because I reached out to one person that I knew from the rare disease community who works with a number of different advocacy organizations. And I just said, here's this idea I just spun out over the weekend. Check out this website. If this is a good idea, let me know. If it's not, don't tell me, because I'm still going to do it. And then if you'd be so kind as to just put it on some people's radar that you think could benefit. And that night I had four entry contact forms filled out, and I got my first client from one of those. So it was that's just kind of how it snowballed right away.
You know what's so cool about that, Ben? The first thing I say in my business course when it comes to like different ways to get clients, start with your personal and professional network, because they're not necessarily your clients. It's who they know who are likely going to be your clients. what you just did, I don't know if everyone realizes what you just said there, but that is literally that scenario. You just reached out to a person you knew in that world. Here's an offer. They shared it. You got your first client. So for anyone who was in the early days wanting my first client, try that out first. You didn't have to market. You didn't have to go dance on TikTok. Like you didn't have to do any like content creation at that point other than having a really good offer. Of course, you did work up to that point, but good on you, dude, for starting with, people And like I said,
thanks.
it's a great, I think it's a very wise decision to have a wing of your business that is kind of a passion project alongside of your small business design. Because I know on your side, what's your side? What's that website again? The one for rare disease?
It's called Zebra Sight Studios. And you might be thinking like that's a really weird name for what you just described. So in medical school, students are taught, or at least they were at one point in time, taught that when you hear hoofbeats, think horses and not zebras, because the most common diagnosis is going to be the most likely. The problem with that rationale is that zebras exist. And so there are those rare diseases that are out there that get overlooked by most things, that first line visit, the second line, maybe even, it's going to take 3-4 visits to get to somebody who's like, let's just get you some genetic testing and see what's going on. And that's a common plight. They call it the diagnostic odyssey. And so the zebra is like this unofficial mascot of the rare disease community. So it's maybe a little bit of a dog whistle sending out there for people who might understand what the background signifies.
That's super clever, man. It's very cool. I also I'll make sure we have both of these linked in the show notes, of course. Both of your sites have very similar elements. There's a lot of similar graphics. They're just repurposed and rebranded. So again, you're doing so many things well, so many things smart. Moving forward from that, which is interesting too, because you launched with both of these at the same time. It's not like you established your main business and then opened up a passion project, which can be done. You're doing it in a good way though, but you're also, I think for anyone who has a side niche business, it's so important. And you tell me if you agree with this, to make sure that is productized and templatized, because if you run 2 custom businesses at the same time and try to grow both of those, you're basically giving 50% effort to each of those. And that can be a really, really hard place to be in, especially if you are already working full time.
Yeah. I have kind of a blank site that has elements that I would commonly use, and I have plugins that I use in WordPress on every site. I've got 2 versions of that basic thing. One is for forward web design when I'm working with small businesses, and the other one is a bit more robust, and that's for Zebra Sight Studios. And when we get into the meat and potatoes of it with the rare disease advocacy groups, they're also different, that there is going to be some customization there, but it's not to the same degree that I'm starting from absolute scratch, or just taking some ideas, or, hey, give me some suggestions of what kind of things you like on websites. This is what we got. Let's make it yours.
Are you doing subscription model for your forward web design site as well? Or are you doing more my approach with the hybrid kind of, 50 upfront, 50 upon completion with hosting and then growth plans after that?
Yeah, the second one. Exactly. It's much more of a traditional web design model. And you could think of this, like you said, I did both of them at the same time. I was sitting there and I was kind of strategizing in my mind, and I thought, how can I come out of the gate with as big of a momentum as I possibly can? One thing is, all these small businesses in Sioux Falls, there's a network that you're a part of. I'm in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, by the way. And if I can connect with them, then I know I'll be golden. And so I followed your courses. I did your stuff, forward web design, built on that model. But at the same time, it was, how can I get clients based on my own community? And that's where it came into this idea of niche. And niche gets from the podcasts you listen to and the books you read, it sometimes gets this like almost negative connotation, as if it's like, how can I capitalize on this tiny little market? And I can't emphasize it enough that for me, the question was, what can I do with this skill set to do the most good for for the world? How can I do something here that is giving back, or actually helping progress things? And if rare disease advocacy is out there having problems telling their stories, I know how to tell that story, and we can meet and we can sit down and talk about it and push our websites out. And so I thought maybe that's a niche that I can work with right away. And I just went all in on it. And so it was, let's do this subscription model over here where I feel like it makes more sense. And we'll do the traditional setup over here with the small businesses, because I feel like that makes sense. And whichever one makes me the most money is going to be that's going to be the stanchion of the business. But it's a little bit more like recurring revenue versus those big influxes of cash. So yeah.
And I could see you eventually going all subscription potentially, but as we all know who have done the subscription model or have that in there, it is a much slower game to, I mean, it's awesome when recurring income goes and compounds, but it does take time. So what I like about what you've done is you have what I teach, which is what I did in my business course, which is the traditional model, 50% upfront, typically 50% upon completion of a month or 2-month project. The reason I like that, especially in the early days, is you may get influxes of $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 months with that model, which can really hold you over and jumpstart you. The problem with going all in on subscription at first, and you mentioned Steve Schramm, he's one of our good buddies. He would agree with me on this. He has on the podcast before. If you are strapped for cash, and if you are just starting, the subscription model is going to take at least a couple years, depending on how much money you need to bring in to really be able to cover that. Because even if you land, 10 clients at $300 a month, well, you're still only bringing $3,000 a month in for a long time. And then you need to do all the fulfillment for all those clients in a few months. So I really like that you took a safe approach to this idea of working in these different pricing models, which is great. And it looks like you're able to balance those and do those both well. And it's kind of a cool case study too, because you can have some fun and kind of go for a $5,000 or $10,000 contract, or you could go safe and go with the subscription route, and it all kind of works out. So I'm glad to hear that's worked out for you, Ben. Marketing, you mentioned the group. Was it a BNI group that you joined? Referral group?
It's based on BNI. There were a number of BNI groups in the area, and one of them just kind of broke off and created this group that's not affiliated with BNI, but it's got a similar model. It's a referral group.
Is it like INB or something like that? Like just rubbing it in their faces. Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
I mentioned that because our friend Mike in Pro, he was recently on the podcast. Well, at the time of recording this, he's about to be on. But he's got like several six figures coming in from BNI itself. Like it really, that really compounds. So another really important thing too, I think for everyone who does have the time, one question I had about this was how you're doing that with your time constraints. But gosh, referral groups, they really do expand your network so quickly. How are you managing that though? Is it early? Is it in a time that you don't need to be working? Like how are you actually managing is it a weekly group at this point, or is it monthly?
They meet every 2 weeks, and you're required to be there at one of them each month. I go to as many as I can. And it's a decent sized group, couple dozen people. And they want to cap it around maybe 35. They don't want it to go too much higher than that. But you could think of it as just like compounding interest almost. You start with your network. Who's in your network? Who's in your group? Going to a referral group is just essentially saying, I'm Ben Forrest. I'm starting a web design business. And this is what's so cool about it. And then asking each of those people to do that exact same thing. So you've just like blown that concept up onto a totally different scale, because they're all going to go tap into their networks and say, if you need a website, I got a guy.
Yeah, you're doing things smart in the way of making things easier on yourself. Like you said in the beginning, you can do a lot on your own, but man, is it hard. Like don't do the hard things. How do you feel about cold calling? Have you tried cold calling?
No, I haven't. And a large part of that is because I was a telemarketer in college. And so I've spent time on the years sitting on a phone and talking to people. And, I just know that it's one of those things that if you have 100 phone calls, one or two is going to turn out the way you want it to. And I don't have time for that. So it's kind of like, let's figure out where those, as organically as possible, where can we get some quick wins?
I asked that just for that very reason. I don't know if you saw that post in Pro. One of our members asked about cold calling, and I was very honest in saying, like, that is like the very last thing I would do. I'm putting out this guide here, 50 ways to get web design clients. I'm not sure if it'll be out by the time this goes live, but it will soon if it's not already out. And it's literally last on the list. Like, there's just so many other things you could do rather than cold calling, especially now. And if you do happen to be in a community or an online community or a community of people like the rare disease community, you're just at such a better end. There's almost no need to pound businesses cold. I like that you had that approach early on, like how, and again, I think there's value to having deadlines and time constraints. It's like, I got a little bit of time. What's the easiest way to go about this? And I'm really glad, what I learned in my experience is translated to you, Ben. It's super cool. So you're getting going, you had a hot streak shortly after that. It seemed like every update in Pro, you were like, got a new client, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000. What led to that hot streak? Do you think was it just momentum? Was it referrals? What led to that little hot streak you went through and kind of have been going through?
I think that it was a few different things happening at the same time. One of them was the momentum. So I did have a good number of contact forms get filled out, and I had a good number of people who wanted to meet. So that's a great place to start.
Where were those coming from, by the way? Have you been able to track where those came from?
Yeah, I've had a lot of those were referrals from within the rare disease community, but I have had now for both brands. I've begun to start getting contact forms from organic Google searches, and ironically, neither the on my contact form at the bottom, I say, if you found me on Google, what did you search for? And I have yet to have anyone type in one of the keywords I optimized for. So it's like, oh, wow, maybe I should revisit the whole SEO.
Hey, it's working though, by golly.
I guess, but I think there's the momentum, but I also have been working a lot on, if I'm going to go all in on being a business owner, my goal is to be able to leave a full-time job and do this on my own within the next 18 months or so. And I'm setting that as a goal. If it was just me, it would be a very, very much more ambitious goal, but I still have to feed 4 little mouths and make sure that there's a roof over our heads. So I got to be smart about it too. I'm a risk averse person. I avoid risks. I don't like it. And I just knew and recognized that that's something I'm going to need to get more comfortable with. Yeah. And so at the same time I was getting that momentum, I was saying, at some point you gotta leap here. And it hasn't happened yet, but being a member of Pro, or maybe any online community, but my experience has been with Pro, and I feel like it'd be hard to replicate. It makes it easier to take those risks. And it's not because you've got a bunch of people cheering you on. It's because if I say yes to this and then I get into it and I've overcommitted, I have people I can bring in. Like I could talk to somebody who's an expert in that thing, and they and I would work out an arrangement. They could come in and knock out like whatever video editing they need, or just an example, and then I go back to the client, they're none the wiser. They get the result they needed. I didn't have to do the thing I didn't know how to do. And, it's because I've made some friends over here,
So you are, by the way, I did a quick check. You're on page 2 for Sioux Falls Web Designer. Is that how you say it? Did I say that right?
Yeah. Sioux Falls. Yep.
Yeah. You're on page 2. You have 2 links on page 2, both for your service area page and your just main website. So That's pretty darn cool, man. With all considered, I know you're getting deeper and deeper into local SEO. So
yeah, I'm doing an SEO experiment right now, and I just did a little update where I was grabbing numbers. Interestingly enough, you've talked about a ViaForge is a company in Columbus, and you've talked about their strategy with using all of the smaller communities around Columbus to be, hey, let's check out these other geographical locations within my driving distance, and we'll see what happens. And actually, I had a coaching opportunity with you in a hot seat in Pro, and for everybody who doesn't know, it's essentially the whole group kind of gets together on a big Zoom call, and it's just kind of like, hey, I just redid my homepage, and can you review it? And then Josh will put you up on the screen, and then everybody looks at it, and you get all kinds of awesome real-time feedback from people who are way better at this than you. And so I was in this hot seat, and I was telling Josh, I like this ViaForge strategy. Problem is, I live in South Dakota with 6 other people. this is not a metropolis here. Sioux Falls has, including all the bedroom communities around it, there's maybe 250, 300,000 people, okay. But the whole state has 800,000. So wow. The entire rest of the state is just very sparsely populated. And so it's like, how can I apply this ViaForge local SEO strategy to a situation where I'm in this, giant, let's just say really spread out geographical thing? If I'm going to take that approach, I'm going to have to sell to people who live outside of my driving distance. How do I comfortably do that? And you and then Sam Starson had some great advice about approaching that. And if you go to page 2 on Google, my areas we serve page, the one that I based off the ViaForge strategy, actually ranks higher than my homepage does. Yeah. And I just found that interesting.
That strategy works. Yeah. I mean, you said it, but for anyone who is muddy on that idea, it's basically just to have if you're going to target your local area and around your local area, just have a page that is like areas we serve or locations. And then you have the main city and then the little cities. Each one of those little cities have a page that's SEO'd towards that. You can have a lot of repeating global elements with your services and testimonials, but you do want to have kind of customized copy that is location based per city. And if you link it all together like a tree, there's a link on your homepage that links to your main service page, and then you link out to the smaller branches, aka location pages from there. It works. It just works. And I know a lot of SEO people I've seen, maybe you've seen this too. They're like, that's a bad strategy. Don't do that. I'm like, I'm going to do what actually works. So as long as it actually freaking works, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah. I wound up talking to a business in South Dakota, not in my region, who Googled web hosting, Watertown, South Dakota, which is maybe 2 hours north of me. In no way did I optimize for web hosting or Watertown, South Dakota. And they found me.
Page one, dude.
So it's like, okay, I don't know how that happened, but we'll keep her going.
You're the 5th organic. Yeah, that's totally not even. It's web design, Watertown, South Dakota, that you optimize for, but you must have hosting in the text somewhere.
It's in my maintenance plan. I call it website management because hosting and all that
heads
stuff.
Heads up, Ben. There is I think there's a broken image on that page while I'm on it.
Shoot.
Coaching time, found a broken image. I don't know. Not sure.
I'll pop over there later.
Cool. Somewhere on here you have hosting in the text, and that's enough. Like it's amazing what you could do with SEO with just a little bit. A little bit goes a long way is what I'm trying to say with SEO. So you're implementing a lot of great strategies, dude. You're doing what you can online. Are you doing content? Do you have a social media presence? I mean, you're active in that rare disease community. You're active in your networking group as often as you can be, or I should say your referral group. You've made a lot of location area pages and SEO optimized, doing more at that. What other areas, or are you doing any other forms of marketing?
I have a Facebook page for Forward Web Design. I have an Instagram, too. It's going back to your question about time management. I have another business that's a passion project. I do it with my older two boys. And we sell things for campfires and camping and stuff that we make, and the money goes to feed kids in South Dakota who live at risk of hunger. And for that, I went all in on TikTok, and I have a TikTok account for that business that has a ton of followers. But that was that was more work than starting a business. That was a ton of work. And I haven't been on there in a while, but I still will. I just knew out the gate that starting up a social media presence is going to be something that's going to take up a lot of time, and I don't have a lot of time. And so I haven't put much focus on it. I do have this idea where on my FAQs, I know the questions, but then I have a hard time writing copy in a way that doesn't become like a whole page. And so what I want to do is just record brief videos of myself answering the questions and then putting the videos in my FAQ. And that way there's a video response to a frequently asked question. And that can go on a YouTube channel, and then that can be out there. And then I can pull from that and start a blog and do all these other things.
That would be my recommendation if you do any form of content marketing moving forward, whether it's in the near future or maybe in 25. I would start a YouTube channel and then optimize it for your local SEO pages as well. Like if you attach a video on each one of your local SEO location pages, that will be clutch. And if you talk about doing web design for, Sioux Falls or whatever it is, Watertown, whatever, that will do wonders for you. So maybe we can come up with a little strategy and pro on that. I would definitely recommend doing that. And you said it, if you do have a hard time writing copy on something, or you end up writing a book, just record little videos on each. Maybe give yourself like a 1 to 2 minute window. And then you can take that transcript, and that can be the written copy that accompanies the video too. So very wise. How are you so wise already? First year
I'm used to speaking in 60-second increments on TikTok, so I can get that figured out.
That's a great little philanthropic venture too, man. I would highly encourage you put that on your about page, just to show that, you have a heart for some, for kids in your area. I would have like a giving back section in your about page, or a page called Giving Back. I mean, that kind of thing. Think about it like this too, for everyone. Like if you do give back in some sort of way like that, if you're up against a few other web designers and the client's like, okay, I've got Ben and, Lisa and Jimmy. Jimmy's kind of the douchey social media, digital marketing guy, but they obviously have a proven track record. Lisa seems nice, like her design. And then there's Ben. But then they're like, they see your Giving Back page and they see like, wow, Ben is like, not only is this business building his business and supporting his family, but he's also giving back to the community. That is something that could be the very key differentiator between somebody moving with you and then moving on from somebody else. So all that said, I would definitely, I'd consider.
I could see that. Page. It's one of those things where I started having kids, and then they started going to school, and I learned from their friends, being around their friends and stuff, that the reality is 1 in 6 kids here live at risk of hunger, meaning, 1 in 6 kids goes home on Friday and then doesn't reliably have a meal until they get back to school on Monday. And, we're right here in the middle of the United States, and this is a place where that shouldn't be happening. And it is. So we've been putting that out for a few years now, and it's been really greatly received. We have donated just over 35,000 meals.
Wow. So, good on you. Oh, Ben, I want to see. How have I not known about this? This should be like front and center. That's incredible, man. Get that on your site. That's amazing.
Oh, thank you. It's a literal labor of love.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I really want to see that on your site. Even just that stat, like we have whether it's revenue or whether it's a percentage eventually of profit in the business that goes towards that, or just saying like, I also run a passion side project with my kids. And yeah, we've been able to provide 35,000. That's incredible.
That's a good question maybe to ask you about. So
let's do it. Let's make this a coaching call too, man.
Well, so when we started that business, I needed a website. I went to Squarespace and built a website using Squarespace. And then I didn't like how expensive Squarespace was. And so the next year I rebuilt it on WordPress and found Divi. So I Divi, WordPress, rebuilt the whole site. And that was just around the time that I started learning coding and stuff too. And so I YouTube, Divi tutorials and went through stuff. I know I've watched a few of yours for sure. And then I, was incorporating the CSS I was learning and all of these other things. And the process of building the website for this other business got me interested in web design. And so it isn't that the other business went out of business and went away, and then I'm starting a new one. It's a lot more like this is there, and it was actually something that nurtured this new type of interest that I've got.
That's cool.
And it's a big thing. So I can feel good that I've got a business where I'm taking care of myself and my family, and we're growing this business. This is going to be the next phase of my career, and I can also sleep well at night knowing that I'm also taking some of the energy that I've got and teaching my boys and teaching my family that, making sure that everybody around you has food on their plate too is just as important as making sure that you have some on yours.
Yeah, I mean, the moral of the story here is do not hide your philanthropic efforts, especially from clients on another business. Because think about potentially maybe some of your small business clients or even the rare disease clients. If they see you're doing this, they may very likely want to give. Or maybe if you do something annually, if you do like a Thanksgiving drive or something, you could absolutely include that in a monthly newsletter to clients and say, by the way, if you didn't know, we also give back to the community. It's 100%. Proceeds go towards this. If you'd like to, it's kind of a win-win with all these different things you have going on. So all that to say, yeah, man, let's get that sucker up on the side.
My big question that I think I need coaching on is I really struggle with the question of why web design? How did you get into web design? Why are you 15 years into a career in biomedical research and having a side business focused on your woodworking hobby? How are you over here building websites now? Like, do you have multiple personalities? Are you
have clients asked you that?
Clients have asked me that. And I've also felt like it's a gap in on my website. Like when I talk about myself or I tell the story of the business, I feel like there's truth in the quote that people buy from people, not businesses. And you need to make sure that you are the face of your company, which is why I had no problem taking your advice to put the founder's note, top of your website, because I want people to know who they're dealing with. And part of that, I think, means explaining why I own a web design business. And I don't really know how to do that because my training and stuff is in completely unrelated things.
I mean, I would just be completely honest and just say, yeah, like I've been in this industry for a long time, but it was never what you just said in the beginning here is perfect copy for that. You said something to the effect of, I did everything you should do, but I just never felt fulfilled. And I always realized that I wanted to help people and do, my own thing. And that's what led to the creation led into my journey of doing websites, because not only do I get to explore my creativity and my love of problem solving, but I also get to help people and help people build their businesses. Boom.
Yeah.
Here's your founder's note. You can take the transcript that we'll have here. Thanks, Jen, for doing the transcript for this.
Yes.
And hey, Jen, I would absolutely do that on your maybe something to that effect is on your founder's note on your homepage and goes to your about page. One thing I would do too, Ben, as I'm looking at your about page, I know we're kind of getting into semi website review stuff now too. Which, by the way, everyone, this is what we do every week in Web Designer Pro. I would also write your bio or on your about page in not in third person, but like you. I would say like, hey, I'm Ben.
Okay.
I started this. It just feels a little more personal, especially since it's your last name in the website. Unless you had a team and a copywriter, I would just have it, this is like a note from you. I would just be honest about that. I don't know if that would conflict.
No, it's
conflict with your employment if you said that? Because they're going to be like, "Oh, that's nice to know, Ben."
No, they know. No. They I've worked very closely with my leadership for years and years, and they're very well aware of my goals and ambitions.
Okay, but that is a conflict potentially.
It's a time conflict. Something that I have to balance and manage my time, but I have never had a problem with that. I think that. No, go ahead.
Oh, so I was just going to say, I meant like it's a conflict if they didn't know that you had, intentions of leaving, and they're like, "Whoa, I saw your website and saw that you're going to leave us here as soon as you can." Uh-oh.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like you're just kind of putting it out there. This is where I want to go with my career. Every good boss should be asking you what your goals are. So I'm not going to lie. That's the way it goes. And I think of it too, as maybe there's not a lot of conventional stuff about the way that I'm thinking about my future here, because it's like I've done conventional. I worked really hard for a long time to get a job where I had to put a suit on every day, and I'd sit in the meetings, and I'd be there for finance discussions and all these different things. And I'm there. You get there. If you work hard, you get there. And so I'm there, and it's not where I want to be. And that's a tough pill to swallow, right away. But a mentor of mine, who's been a friend for a long time, said, the solution's totally in your control here, bud. You can pivot. There's nothing that says you can't. And so that's what I've done. And I know it's the right decision, because even though it's been very, very hard, there hasn't been a single moment where I've even considered absolutely throwing in the towel. Stopping isn't an option. This is the direction I want to go in. I know that I have the right reasons. I know why it's fulfilling to me. And, this is what we're pursuing. So, it's there. The next phase is going to be, multi 7-figure agency owner, doing podcasts with Josh Hall.
I'm not surprised that 7-figure went into the conversation here at some point. You did mention a keyword there, being this first part of the journey being hard. I have said publicly that I almost named this podcast Web Design Business Made Easy. And I literally was writing, like I wrote some copy for it. I was working on the logo for it. And then I just felt a little slimy, like made easy in the term. And that is because it's not easy. You can have all the training, all the courses, you can have the complete map, everything we have in Pro, can have everything. You have community support, you can have me coaching you. It is still going to be hard. What were the hard aspects so far in your experience?
You don't know what you don't know. And so you get far enough down a path where you make enough mistakes going down a path to realize that you're doing this the wrong way. And, I can give you the example I would give you is setting up the business and I guess kicking things off along that one path using Squarespace and just throwing it together on there. And realizing that, I'm hundreds of dollars in on this thing that's doing fine, but I'm going to have to pay that again next year. And I don't have those kinds of resources. So it's like, I guess I'll teach myself how to do this. And that's maybe a little bit more about me as a person than anything. But I think that I would say that it's kind of like, putting together like a fuse box in a house where you've got like the big electric panel. You could sit there and try to like get that thing set up. And you might even get it right 4 days into it. But it's a lot easier if you got the wiring diagram in the door. You can just follow that. And that's kind of what like joining pro is. You get these sorts of tips and resources that you can just use to begin. So I've not ever told anybody that it's easy, because it's definitely not. But you can make things easier on yourself by giving yourself the resources that are out there.
That's well said. So the tool selection platforms, was there anything that you would label as hard in the way of the business side of things? Confidence, getting clients, sales call. You mentioned the first sales call was awkward. What was the hardest thing on the business side?
Yeah, it was essentially rethinking the way that I think about finances. I as part of my career to this point, I was kind of stagnant at a certain level, and was given some advice. If you want to move up in the company, you need to get an MBA. And so I went to graduate school and earned an MBA. And you're knee deep in corporate finance classes, and that's very much your income statements and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, I'll start a business. Yeah, I got an MBA. I know how to do that. No, I know how to manage an already existing corporation, and not even that. I know how to manage like one department within that. It's not necessarily transferable. And setting up my expenses and setting up my things to work that way was just hard for me to think about. But reading Mike Michalowicz's Profit First book, and then completely reframing the way that this goes, where it's like, I don't necessarily need to generate a profit and loss statement at the end of the quarter and then look at that and analyze my numbers. If I just set up the way that money flows into the account and out of the account, I can just have a snapshot where I look at it and it makes more sense. And I can tell you there's nothing more satisfying to me than the end of the quarter rolling around and seeing that I've got $150 in this profit account. And that's not a lot, but to me, that represents $150 of wealth in the market that was not there before. I have just created a little tiny chunk of like profit that's only mine. I can do whatever we want with it. And it's because people have put their trust in me, and that means a lot to me too. I went into this to try to help and make a difference in an area that I want to help in, small business or patient advocacy. And people are willing to trust me with this. And it's not a small part of the business or an organization. It's your website's your external facing presence these days, and all things lead to the website. So it's a big component. And when people take it seriously, that's when good things can start happening for their company in 2024. But, you were going to say something.
Well, I was going to say, it's a great little sales pitch. If anyone wonders how you're landing projects, there it is. Stressing the importance of the website. But I was just thinking, I'm so glad you mentioned finance, because I wanted to make sure as we close this out, I wanted to talk pricing, because I recently shared in my newsletter your recent story, which thank you, Ben, for being so cool about publishing that publicly.
Yeah.
You landed a $7,500 web design project with this slick little, I don't even know what to call it, kind of a little roadmap, a little process for a low ticket offer, which was a $500 boost plan. And then you did a free audit, which is kind of a, tips, recommendations for the website. You rolled that into a slight redesign, like a mock-up example. And then you went for it. You offered a proposal and a plan for using the subscription model, in this case, 18 months for a project, and then a down payment or a setup fee of $1,200. Total was $7,500. I want to know from you, pricing wise, was that hard as well? And then what led you to feel confident to, for lack of a term, just go for it and have a $7,500 proposal, a kick-ass proposal? What can we call it? I think it was awesome.
I would love to be able to say that I mapped all of that out ahead of time and that it went the way that I expected. But what actually happened was that this person wanted to just learn more about the business. And while we were talking, SEO came up, and I said, I offer an SEO boost package, $500, and I'll optimize 5 pages for 5 keywords. And we went down that road, and there's a huge website. There's a lot of stuff there, a lot of content. It's in the advocacy space, so it's a lot of medical terminology and a lot of stuff like that, a lot of scientific research articles and things. But I did these 5 pages, optimized it, and I kept finding myself reining myself in, because I'd be like, oh, there's 43 plugins that need to be updated. I'll just hop in there and hit update. It's like, no, that's not what I'm getting paid for right now. And so I'd move on to doing the thing. And so when I got done with like the technical components of this, I sent her a report and an email that just said, I finished your SEO boost project. This is what's going on. Next steps are, I'm going to monitor the site, and in 6 months, I'll give you a second report to show what kinds of results we've had. By the way, while I was in there working, I recognize you're not updating anything. That's huge security risk. You need to be in there at least every month doing that. And then, there was just a handful of things that I was like, these are things I would recommend that you tackle right away with your website. And I just left it at that. And it said, I'll be in touch and continue to give you updates as time goes on. And, she responded, oh, wow, I'm really glad, I'm so happy with what this looks like. I mocked up the homepage just to say, hey, this is how you could redistribute this content so it flows better, makes a little more sense. And I was a better designer than her previous one. So I was kind of like, well, here we go. And and she loved that. So she just said, what's it going to cost for you to do these 5 things? And I put together that proposal there. But I really wanted to redesign. And from working on the SEO project, I had the inside baseball of knowing what's going on within the website. And I know that this thing is big. It's going to take work. It's going to be something that's going to need to be managed very closely. This isn't going to be a $2,500 website. And so, I kind of pulled 7,500 out after trying to calculate hours or think about the scope. And I landed on 7,500, and I thought, well, you know what? If nothing else, I might get 1,000 out of this to do these 5 things that need to get done, and I'll send it off. But I'm not going to quote anything lower than that, because I know it's going to be a big undertaking. And I sent it off, and then, the next morning it's like 5 a.m. I've got a cup of coffee. I'm sitting at my computer, and then I get a little Moxie notification. Moxie is my CRM. Little notification pop in that says you got a signed agreement. And so I was like, oh, okay. And so I'm expecting, I'm gonna hop in there, and I'll see that she took the $1,000 thing to fix the 5 items, and she selected the second one. And I opened my email, and there's a note from her. I absolutely love the way this looks. This sounds amazing. Let's go all in. I want you to be around, I want to have you on hand for 18 months. Let's go. And, right there at 5 a.m. with all my family sleeping, I did a giant cheer and a happy dance, and the day started on the right foot.
Heck yeah, dude. What a win, Ben. Way to go, man. Like you said, you didn't even realize the genius of the funnel that you had set up, but you really primed that lead with a quick low ticket offer. You built some authority, you built trust, gave them some inspiration, some ideas, and then while the iron was hot, you go for it. So well done on you. Leading up to this, were your projects, you like I said, you kind of were on a bit of a hot streak, but those were mostly like $2,000 projects, around that range, right? Little $500 wins here or there.
Yeah, I was doing I think the first website I did was $500. And it was just I need a testimonial. I need to have something to put out that show that I've actually designed something. This is what their budget is. Let's do this. Of course, I, essentially paid them to build their website, but I got what I needed out of it. And every time that I've had a project that I've learned a lot on, and I know I can apply things to the next one, I do raise my rates a bit in my head.
Yeah.
I use the value-based pricing model. So I have the pricing range on my site.
Do you have a potential client page?
I do, but it's not indexed.
Nice.
I just send it via email if there's a person who asks questions. And it's a kind of a how can we work together kind of a thing.
Yep.
So yeah, I have the range on there, but I've in my head, I kind of go, okay, next time I'm putting a website of this size together, I'm not going any lower than 3,000. And
Nice.
That's kind of what I take out of it. And so, yeah, it started out as those like 500, 1,000, 1,700. And now I'm kind of more in that range where for a real basic site, if I've, your normal brochure kind of site, would be around 3,000, 3,500 probably.
Awesome. So getting confidence with the pricing. Is this all mapped around a financial goal this year for you, or is this just kind of experimenting since you still have full-time employment and some cushion financially?
I do still have full-time employment. I've got things put together. I told myself that 2024 was going to be a year for learning and for building systems. And so it was going to be figure out how to run a web design company, and then also put in systems that aren't dependent on you. So it's kind of like, how can I automate my processes, or how can I, have something put together that just is there when I need it, like a website template. And so I've been building those kinds of things up. And then this fall, I want to really sit down and think about 2025. Okay, well, let's go in with a full head of steam. How much do I need to cover? How much ground do I need to cover in 2025 to be able to do this full time?
Yeah.
And there's, two questions wrapped up into that. How much money do I need? How much money do I need to be making in a year for my family to eat? But also, how much of my own salary do I need to cover before it's like, all right, you just need to quit now and go all in on your web design business. I don't want to wait. I don't want to wait till the end of 2025 if it would be if it actually would be more lucrative to just go in and devote time to it.
My two metrics for that, actually, this is great timing because I'm going to put something together in pro here on this, probably like a workshop. My metrics are ideally you want to get to 50% of your income with a side business. And then if you can have 6 months of savings, or in case of like your spouse having a business, if there's another income stream that would put it to the point where even if you had to cut back dramatically on expenses and eating out and whatever else, you would still be able to survive comfortably and build things up. And so many members who have gone full-time and pro will say the same thing. It is shocking how fast and far you will go. I see you nodding your head because I know this is what you're going to experience here next year when you are full-time and when you have all the bandwidth towards that. Now, equally as hard is to reel that in because there is benefit, like we've talked about, with having constraints. But those are the two metrics there. If you can have 3 to 6 months savings and then get to the business to 15 or 50% of where you're at, then it would be like, okay, it's time to actually set a date and let's go.
That's awesome feedback. I like just as a frameworks. I think that looking at covering half a year, if I can get to that point and June rolls around, and things haven't collapsed and burned, I can, then I could potentially just go.
Yeah.
I know that, we mentioned BNI earlier, when we were talking about NIB, and I think that I would put an emphasis or a priority on joining a proper BNI group.
Yeah.
Once I go full time, the conflict right now is that I have to leave work to go to BNI, and that is something they wouldn't be happy with. So yeah. I do have those limitations at the moment, but I do know how much a BNI group is helpful. I have a friend even in this city who does print graphic design, and she's had a very successful business for 15 years or so here in town. And I said, what do you do for marketing or for advertising or anything? And she said, I started going to BNI for 4 years. And then I still to this day get every client from referrals from BNI.
So like, Ben, so we're talking right before the next episode comes out. It's going to be 338 with Mike Albuquerque. I don't know if you've connected with Mike yet in Pro. He's awesome. But BNI is his main source. And in 2023, $208,000 came to his business by way of revenue from BNI specifically, like exclusively through networking. So needless to say, now he's been doing it for like 6 years, so it's compounded, but needless to say, bang on. Yes, that is absolutely what you will have time to do and market for. So I'm going to send you, if you want early access to it, I'm going to send you the YouTube video.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
If you want to listen before it comes out next week. And then by the time this comes out, go back to episode 338. It's a doozy. It's like a masterclass in how to network and be in a referral group. So I'm super excited to be a part of this next phase for you, Ben. It's been an honor serving you and seeing what you've done just in 7 months inside a Pro. My goodness, like the leaps and bounds you have made. I can't even imagine. We still have half a year left almost in 24. So 25 is, woo. I mean, you've really learned a lot. You've implemented fast in the first half of 24. The next half of 24, I imagine you're going to be refining and just boosting what you have in place, being more confident, really reeling in your services, working on those SOP. Have you gone through my scaling course yet?
I have, yeah.
Okay.
No, not scaling.
Okay. So you haven't gone through Scale Your Way. So that actually, I'll say like we probably want to, as you start to refine delegating and automating, that's really going to help you already, I think, have a mindset for that for next year. Although you could actually technically start to scale and get some help even just while you have full-time employment, just to give yourself a little bit of a buffer, to bring on some junior help and repeatable tasks. But that, I really think that's going to be the roadmap for you. And then 25 is going to be, we'll set a goal for whatever level of 6 figures you want to hit, revenue wise, to account for taxes and everything else and expenses. And then we'll talk about what you need to take home. So we'll hit 7 figures. We'll get to 7 figures eventually, but right now 6 and multi 6 figures, that's 25. So, dude, I'm so excited to be a part of this next phase of your journey. Again, it's been so awesome seeing what you've done so far.
I'm glad. I'm so happy that you're here for the next phase of my journey. And, I'm happy to be on it too, because it's, like I said earlier, it's just embracing the thing that I feel like for, a big first time in my career is like a real big push towards doing something for myself and building a life that I want. I thought I would get doing what I have done. And now I just got to put the accountability and ownership on my own shoulders and push the ship off the docks and let's go.
Well, you're really doing so many things right, Ben. I mean, like I said, you've been almost in Pro almost every day. It seems like you're one of the top engaged members, and but you're also super helpful already. You're really coming through with some like sage counsel already for folks who are the step below you now in the way of like their early state. They're like just getting started, and you've already come in as a mentor in a lot of ways. So you're a great example in Pro of like, even if you're just a year into it, you'll be shocked at how much you have to give back to people who are, Ben of last year. So awesome, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, thank you for everything. And thanks to all the pros. It's kind of just paying it forward, honestly, because I knew nothing about anything on January when I started, and here at March, I'm trying to get my first client. I did put in a goal to be accountable to, set myself a deadline. Within 2024, I need to have at least one $10,000 month. I made a joke in Pro where I was like, I just hit my first 4-figure month, everybody. And they were like, well, you got to make that 5. And the thought of a 10,000 plus month was laughable to me. But now I'm kind of like, let's see if we can make that happen.
Let's put that one out there too, Ben. Absolutely, man. Let's put that out in pro, then let's get there. I mean, at your rate, we still have 5 months left. We're recording on August 1st. We have 5 months left now of 2024. So you get a couple ways, especially if you use a traditional model with an influx of maybe a $5,000 payment with your other subscription plans and hosting and maintenance and growth plans. Like, I have no doubt you'll hit that by the end of the year. So I'm excited. I'm excited to post that win. We'll do a whole nother.
Yeah, we'll do another thing.
I have a whole section on my website of Ben wins.
Right. Maybe I'll write it at the end of the year. If all goes well, I'll put together here's the thing I stumbled through, so you can follow it and actually intentionally do some stuff.
Heck yeah, dude. Awesome, Ben. Well, man, thanks so much for sharing this first phase of your journey, for really being open and transparent about what you're doing and what's worked for you, some of the hardships you've been through. I'm thrilled for you, dude. And I can't wait to have you on for round 2 once we have $10,000 months. How's that sound?
Oh, I can't wait, man. Thank you so much.
Not too shabby is what I'd say. $7,500 project in year 1. Ben is building some incredible momentum in his business. I said it in the intro here. I'll say it again. I'm so proud of Ben. It's been an honor to see what he's done so early in his journey. And this is just part-time right now. So imagine when he gets to the place where he can dedicate some full-time hours to this. He is going to be unstoppable. I really hope this helped you. Whether you are early in your journey and you're looking for some guidance and vision on how to do this practically in your first year, Ben really shared some important things on how to do it. It's working for him today. But even if you're more established, this idea of having a process like this that is either a free or low ticket offer with a little bit of confidence building for the client and then going for it and taking a project that could, go from something like $1,000 to a $7,500 project. It's very, very possible. And the more experienced you are, I'd say it's easier to be able to have the offers that will take you to the 5, 10, 15, 20K range. So wherever you are in your journey, I can't wait to hear how this helps you. Drop us a comment at joshhall.co/346. Ben, as I mentioned, is one of our most engaged members in my community, Web Designer Pro. So I will let him know to check the comments for this episode. If you are not yet a member of Pro, but you want to pick his brain in some regard, he might be able to drop in the comments. I can't say for sure, but I would imagine he'd be open to sharing some more of his advice on the show notes for this episode at joshhall.co/346. And if you do want to hang out with Ben and have direct coaching like Ben has with me, Web Designer Pro is available in its current form for just a short while longer because I am very close to being completely capped with my coaching. I go live every week for coaching calls. I do DM coaching. And just as a heads up, I am very, very close, like probably 15 to 20 more spots in Pro in its current form. And then we are going to be instituting a tiered model. More on that coming soon. So you will have access to just the courses in the community. But if you want Josh, you got to jump in now. So I'll follow up on that in more detail, but just heads up on that. Join Ben and join myself on Web Designer Pro at webdesignerpro.com. And again, connect with Ben. Go to his website, forwardwebdesign.com. That'll be at the show notes at joshhall.co/346. Thanks for joining, friends. I'll see you on the next one.